Well, hey guys, welcome back to the Midwest Whitetail After Hours podcast, episode 7 coming your way. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It's the middle of the month, sweet November. And this one's going to have some good deer stories that showcase maybe some of the tactics that the guys are using, maybe some things that you've thought about trying. And before we get into exactly what is on this show, wanted to do a quick roll call. Arctic Shield giveaway is still going on. The entry is super simple. Covered it a couple times, but all you gotta do is go to Arctic Shield's Instagram. They've got a Linktree link. Follow that. Chasing November giveaway section. The details on how to enter are right there. It's free. Really no reason not to. I mean, there's a lot of great prizes. So if you take the time to do it, thank you so much and good luck. On the media side, DK episode is live on the Midwest Whitetail YouTube channel. If you're watching this podcast, you're right there. Mike's chase, it was an awesome one, and it's got a lot of really cool deer behavior. It's got a good recovery story, and then you also get to dive into Mike's mind along the way of what pieces he was trying to put together that ultimately led into him tagging his biggest typical buck to date. So Midwest Whitetail Regional Channel. That is another YouTube channel where a lot of our team members are bringing to life great stories. Check that out because those guys are spread out all across the country and big deer falling. And then finally, on the Midwest Whitetail Daily channel, if you're not familiar with that, you can find daily updates where, let's just say Caleb went and hunted today. That hunt will be turned around before you wake up the next morning. So it's an exciting time of year. We're trying to bring as much your guys' way as possible. If you guys got any questions, please drop them in the comments. But on this podcast, we're going to be joining the guys for some, like I said, mid-November updates. Collins Marine specifically tagged an awesome buck utilizing a decoy, and he kind of walks us through his start to finish of his rutcation. Mike Reed brings us an awesome update. Rye Ludwig brings us an update, who spends a lot of time behind the camera with Mike, but finally he's got some time in the woods and he's had some incredible action of his own. Caleb Greiner gives us an update on those southern Iowa farms that he's jumped to after all the EHD struggles in his home places. And then finally, I give him a quick update on what you can expect from me for the next 2 weeks. So it's a fun one. It's a great discussion. Owen Riegler's back in the fold, even though he's been on the sideline, so it's good to catch up with him. We're going to jump to that now. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen or watch, and good luck the next time you hit the woods. All right, guys. Well, welcome back to the After Hours podcast here at Midwest Whitetail, coming at you with episode 7, middle of November, November 14th. A lot of good updates coming your way. We got Rye Ludwig, who is finally, after busting tail all year, going to get some hunts in of his own because Mike Reed is tagged out. Collins Marine's joining us over there in eastern Iowa. Caleb Greiner from southern Iowa. Owen Riegler has been riding the pine, but I guess he just couldn't stay away. Had to talk some deer. And then you got, unfortunately, to deal with me for the night. So exciting things coming your way. Kicking things off, wanted to address the DK score. We posed the question, whoever got the closest, we get some Chasing November swag. And the winner is going to come in as Cobra SVTZ. If you are listening to this podcast, please leave a comment on this podcast on YouTube and then reach out to us on Instagram or Facebook. Contact us with your shipping details and we will get some stuff sent your way. So, Mike, what was the final score of DK?
172 and 6/8.
Mr. Cobra came in at 172 and 3/8. So by far the closest. Congratulations. And like I said, reach out and we'll go from there. But talking about the November timeframe, not sure who wants to start. I think we just kick off with some updates. Then we'll dive into some of the kills we've had. And who wants to start first?
I want to hear about some snort wheezes, Caleb.
No, start with the worst, end with the best. Man, we've we moved shop. I don't know, man, when was I on the podcast last? Well, we moved shop from where I grew up hunting, where I had all my spots pretty much, and we've got this new permission farm, and we had some really good hunts sitting the edge of bedding, doe bedding, and I call it doe bedding just because I know that there's multiple does that have been in there almost every day that we're in there. So I know for sure there's going to be does there that day. So that's going to make sure that there's probably going to be bucks running through there. And we had a couple hunts that it was just that. And we had some really fun We had some really fun snort wheezes. Some of the best vocalization I've ever had in the woods, that's for sure. I mean, I don't know how you don't bust out laughing when they're right under the tree snort wheezing like that. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's a very special thing to get to witness. I mean, it's the frequency that which you have been seeing it, I mean, is absolutely crazy to me. Because I mean, I thought that's always one of the coolest things being a video editor is like you get to tap into, 20 to 30 different folks a season, and you might see one or two clips like that a year. And it seems like every text you send us, a new update on the day. And for those listening, want to make sure that we give a shout out here to the Midwest Whitetail Daily blog channel. If you want to follow along with what Caleb's seeing in video form day by day, you can follow his playlist there. Owen's got a playlist, Mike's got a playlist, Gavin, myself, Zach Rosmus. So lots of daily, updates coming your way that are very, very real time. Go into those strategies. But Caleb, take a step back. One thing I think would be kind of cool to talk about: how different is the terrain? That was where you grew up hunting. Think about, I mean, what you were putting cameras out. Now you're in Southern Iowa, the quote unquote Mecca. Paint that picture for people where we're at down there.
Yeah, this farm is basically made up of a really big draw, and there's a bunch of small fingers that go out from it, but it's surrounded by hundreds of acres of standing corn right now. And it's hilarious. We're sitting in the tree doing all these sits, and you'll just hear deer bellering, chasing, getting it on all over, crashing through the standing corn all over it, but you can't see them. So it has been really tough. It's interesting. You were talking about that decoy. Man, we have had such fun hunts over that decoy. And in the past, I've used the decoy, and I haven't had really good luck. I feel like the spots I've used them in the past, I saw too many does, and maybe I just didn't know what I was doing. But we have just been having crazy good hunts, like you said, and the vocalization, but more so just bringing these bucks into bow range. I mean, every time we see a buck without a doe, he comes right into the decoy, no questions asked. But it's been really fun. So, I mean, if you got a decoy right now, it's a great time to try it. I tell you what.
It sounds awesome. I've watched a couple of them. I mean, I think it's probably think about why and what the variations are between properties and when you might experience that or where you might experience that. And I think about, and I haven't talked to you much about this property, but to me, it's a testament to probably the age structure and the sex ratio on that property. And bucks really looking and fighting and doing standoffs and all this kind of stuff because you just don't see that behavior anywhere. I mean, you could sit every day, and so to see that consistency, I mean, I don't know, what do you think about that property? Obviously, you've been on a little bit. I'd like to hear Owen's thoughts too about like the frequency of that behavior, and what might play into it.
I I'm not sure. And they've got a healthy deer population where I'm hunting, and the doe population is really high too. But today was the first day that we saw mature bucks, or sorry, yesterday was, and we've only been really seeing 3 and 4 year olds. So I'm not really sure. I guess I would say that we're having such good hunts and seeing that stuff just because we're sitting so close to bedding, so close to where we know these does are. And man, it's just like we've been saying, it's just lighting it up.
Yeah. So it's some of them are younger bucks doing that.
The majority of what we've been seeing, other than that one day, have been 3 and 4 year olds or younger. But that yesterday we had an hour at like 10 o'clock where we saw 3 mature bucks finally. So that was nice to see. But I know they're in here, but I've been thinking, are they doed up or what? But it's crazy. I can't pattern a deer all of October, and this darn junkyard dog that Owen helped me out with. I got a couple of cameras over here on this draw, and this deer has been coming into the property that I can hunt at right an hour after last light, and then he goes right back to the neighbors at like 4 o'clock in the morning. So he's been completely huntable. He's done it 5 days in a row, and he is pretty much the only good buck in the area so far. So it's been a little slow.
I was going to ask you, Caleb, Have you switched over to a doe at all, and have you had any bucks that have shied away from your buck decoy now here in middle of November?
So I haven't had any bucks shy away from it unless they're 1.5, 2.5 year olds. But I did notice I used a boss buck one day, and then I used a DSD. Lee was nice enough to let me use it. Thanks, Leanne. But the DSD, I have not had a single deer spook from it. But when we used that boss buck, we had a couple does that came out and they didn't like it. But with that DSD, I mean, we've had does circle and stand by that DSD decoy for 10 to 15 minutes, calm and comfortable, and then work off without blowing. So I have noticed a really big difference with that. The only thing that kind of sucks about it is it's a really expensive decoy. But man, it's it's fun to hunt over, I tell you that much.
We actually had what would it have been 2 podcasts ago. I think we dove into pretty in depth decoy usage, and one of the things we talked about specifically with that Dave Smith was just the first off the size difference. Zach had brought up a very good comparison there of like that Dave Smith is substantially body size wise smaller. It's a little bit less intimidating, but even just diving into the things that I feel like have stood out to me the most is the anatomical ear position. It's just very realistic. And, when we had that discussion, I had just talked about how using an actual mount produced an extremely different result. So I have to think that those are those little details making the biggest difference for you. Ironically, we're going to talk about a kill tonight with Collins Marine, who I believe, if memory serves me correctly, you do have the big giant boss buck decoy and have had some really awesome hunts over it. But I'll be anxious to hear once we get to that part of the conversation, the acceptance of the overall deer herd. Is it just mature bucks that accept that thing and get fired up? Or are you noticing different, than what we're talking about? Maybe does everything's accepting it. So yeah, Caleb, you've been having some awesome hunts, man. I'm really excited to see things hopefully come together. It's interesting you say you've been seeing younger age class. I mean, that's something that you hear often talked about this time of the year is feast or famine, especially when it comes to mature buck activity. More than likely, part of, maybe what you're seeing is those does that are locked down, more than likely are your mature bucks. Now, granted, you just said 5 days in a row you've seen this junkyard dog buck. Is that the new number one, to be clear?
He's number one
as of right now. Okay. So hopefully, as we get into the latter part of November, I mean, you're doing all you can, sitting all day. Like I said, follow along on the daily blog. I think the next update would make a lot of sense to be Mike Reed. Rye. I mean, I guess you guys could both give us, I'd like to see either perspective, but tagged out middle of November. That's super exciting.
Yeah. I think Rye should take us through if maybe November 10th.
Yeah. I guess go back to November 9th. That's when the first encounter was, the evening. A little while ago, I got pictures of a pretty good buck, and I'd been hunting that tight 10 deer sparingly while filming Mike. And I finally got an afternoon where Mike was working and went out there and made a sit. It was November 9th, my first sit of November. And lo and behold, this big deer steps out. And for me, that was the biggest deer I've ever seen hunting for myself. And I was just like, well, holy crap. Like, it's pretty exciting. Just sitting a little blind on a cut cornfield, a lot of does coming to it. And the snort wheezed at him, grunted at him a couple times. He didn't want anything to do with me or the decoy I had. He had 9 does with him. And Caleb, I'll say I've had very different experiences with the decoy than you're having. So now I think looking at your setup on Instagram today, you have it tucked inside in a little opening in the timber. So mine's on like a cut cornfield, and I was talking to Collins. His is kind of on that transition strip as well. I wonder if that's not kind of messing me up. Maybe I need to get a little closer, maybe a little more in the bubble. But he came out, ran some does around, and then tight 10 came out, and they postured up to each other, and he just stood there, and tight 10 just does a circle around him and just keeps on walking. I was like, well, you know who the boss is in this situation. So we snuck out of there that night, and I went in the next morning, and the first deer I see in the field 10 minutes before shooting lights, that big deer, he loops around behind me a couple minutes after legal shooting. It still wasn't quite good enough for the camera, and pops up 2 hours later across the field after I watched tight 10 running does all morning, and I rattled, and he came right in and worked by at about 30 yards, and I took a shot and got ducked pretty hard. Looking back at it, I had to stop the deer, so I was self filming, and I stopped him in my gap, and he was kind of alert. And I think with that, when I shot, he reacted really hard off of it, and he kind of saw me at the end of my draw, I think, as well, looking back at the footage. So hit him in the shoulder, and Mike, me, Zach, and Ty went out and tracked probably 5 hours later just to follow up and make sure what we thought was not going to be a non-lethal shot was that. And last night got a picture of him still kicking, chasing a doe. So that was encouraging to see. I made a sit for him tonight. Didn't have any luck, but we did lay eyes on another buck. I'm not really sure who it is, Caleb, but I'm pretty positive it's the 8-point that Casey was hunting last year.
No kidding.
I know no pictures of him at all this year, and I'm 90% sure it was him. I'll send you a clip of it later, but
Oh, dude, that's crazy. That's like 4 years of history with that.
I know. So it's exciting. That cornfield's been hot, so I'm just going to keep hunting it when I can, and hopefully we can put something together here shortly.
That footage was sick. That deer is an absolute stud. I mean, his mass looked incredible.
The inside beam coming off is, it gets me. So I sit here, and I was talking to Mike about this the other day. It's like moving here from Maryland. I never, ever even thought I would have a deer like that in bow range. Like it was just like a culmination of like everything over the past 3 years. I was like, it sucks how it went down, but I'm glad like the shot was what it was. I didn't wound him bad. So
I feel like you still got a good shot at him.
I think so too. With that being said, tight 10 is still, I mean, if he walks by, we're not past him because there's a bigger deer on there.
Could you try a buck and a doe decoy out in that open field? Maybe like a doe decoy laying down. Lee tried that the other day, and he had probably 2 or 3 bucks come up and check it out in an open cornfield.
I should try that. I actually made a couple texts today, see if anybody had a lay down doe, and I don't know anybody that does, so I might have to go buy one, but I just didn't have time today with trying to get some editing done. So
Yeah, I mean the scenario that you painted right there, talking about the first night encounter where they gave you a look but then didn't commit. To me, it sounds like a hand up or hand up Tom in a field. He's going to acknowledge you're there. He'll look at you, but you're not a threat. You're not. You're so far away, and you're not really coming any closer. So he doesn't really have a reason to leave what he's out there for to come to you. So I think you're on the right track there, the idea of a quote unquote bubble. But, like you guys just all mentioned, maybe the doe is enough to be like, what are you doing? No, that's not cool. Maybe that brings him across. I mean, for me, that spot, knowing what it is, I think it only gets better as the month goes on. We're in the middle of the month now, but there's that return to food becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. Appears to me you're pretty much in the game. And ironically, you're not only going to have ag, you have your poor man's plot with green as well. And I mean, with this hot weather, I got to think that has served you somewhat well. So
it's been really impressive. Like there's those 2 little plots. I did one on either side of the field, and every single evening they're coming out through these 2 spots. It's every single deer comes through, hits it, and then heads on and out to the north to the main ag fields. It's neat to watch, and especially when and I think everybody here can understand the amount of work that we put in, and obviously doing something like that's not exactly very intensive, but it's like rewarding to see that and nice to see the results come together. So
for people wondering what the heck we're talking about, because again, we got to remember people can't see us and they haven't watched this footage. So you had deer damaged corn, correct?
Correct.
And then I remember you're like, I'm going to go broadcast this monster buck, Brassica mix into that. I'm going to see if I get some germination. So that is what he is talking about. He took a damaged agricultural field, turned it into something, has green food next to grain. And, I mean, you had to walk back there pretty dang far. I remember watching the footage of you. You looked
It was
Very-
the humidity was also about 100% that day, so
He looked winded, Josh.
it was
Yeah.
it was. I took my dog, and my dog just kept looking up at me like, "Dude, what are we?"
Is it over yet?
Yeah. So
No, the germination is actually pretty good right there. But I think, I went the first time I've ever been right there was when we were tracking. And just to reiterate what you said, I mean, obviously we all watched the footage and felt like it's probably not lethal, but let's go uh, do a thorough job and make sure. And we found blood, and the blood kind of matched what we thought the shot was, and tracked him probably, I don't know, 300 yards, would you say, Rye? And uh, to the property line, and there was very sparse blood where we're basically finding it where the vegetation was brushing. I was finding it just on brushed vegetation, not on the ground. And so felt pretty confident that, he was going to be alive. And then it didn't take very long for him to be back on camera at all. But as we've talked, um, the last couple times we were out there, I mean, you actually have does bedded out. You have cut beans, you have cut corn, you have CRP, and you got this like wooded ditch. There's actually bucks tending does bedded out in like a waterway, and you're taking photos of them from 300 yards away. So it's kind of interesting. And then watching little bucks come and bust them up. I think the bedded doe decoy, may be a good plan.
So do you, with a cut corn like that, like I think when you were there, Mike, that cut corn's it's like a little high, like they ran the combine head a little high. Do you think that doe is going to be like visible on the flat ground like that? What do you think?
All you need is the head sticking up.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, those deer can see. They know what they're looking at. They might latch onto the buck, and then they're inspecting, and they see the doe. It makes them more interested. But you also could get on the edge. I mean, where that green is, there's the inrows. I mean, there's probably enough visibility there. But Owen, you have any comments? You have any experience with that?
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say I would actually go to a standing doe if it was me personally, but that's just my experience. I've never tried a bedded doe, so I've only got experience with a standing doe. But
Oh, and you have certainly started a heat wave of decoy usage this year, man. Way to go.
yeah, it's gotten crazy. It's gotten crazy, man.
Everybody wants that experience you had, man.
Yeah, that's why I asked Caleb earlier if he'd tried a doe, because this is typically when I'd switch over to a doe decoy, because you get in this frantic stage of the rut right here. A lot of times they are not responding unless they actually see a doe. You can't call them. They just don't respond unless they see something or you're sitting in the funnel. And, the pinch, Mike's farm, if you're sitting there, I mean, yeah, they're going to come by, but, it can be a tough time to catch up to one.
Yeah.
That's a great observation.
Well, so November 10th, we went out and tracked rice buck for a while, and then we got in the stand. We moved down to the river farm and made a short hunt. Didn't want to go too deep in after Fitz. I worked a lot of the week and made two little hour and a half hunts. Fitz had been kind of off the radar. I assumed he was with a doe. And I think it was Thursday that I had him daylight in the morning. In the afternoon, I was like, he's between does. I was like, just talking to Ryan, we're just going to have to put our time in. This is the area the farm he's been on. And so let's just go sit there and try to put ourselves in a good position to, see him. And we went out a little while on the 10th in the afternoon, had a good hunt, saw a beautiful 3-year-old and some, chasing and messing around. But we were really buying time for the next day. And we went to the Central Timber, which is just a big bedding area, a bunch of it's a bottom sort of wet, bunch of sloughs, reed canary grass, and it's thick. And that's where we filmed that big fight last year, and had tons of great hunts in there after Kelsey. And so we went and sat at the edge of that and saw a fair amount of rut activity. It was all young deer, but lots of chasing. And I could see this area that we had been hunting, where it's kind of where the main trail comes out of that bedding area off to the ag, and there's a bunch of acorns. And we're probably 300 yards from there, and I could see chasing going on, and the wind wasn't right to hunt there in the morning, so I never could tell it was over there. But the afternoon, we said, let's move there. And so this is November 11th on Veterans Day. And we finally got in there early. Instead of an hour and a half hunt, we had like a 3.5 hour hunt. It was like 4 hour hunt, whatever. It was nice. And so we had sat till 11:30 noon, got down, did a little switch around, and then got back up. And it's interesting how I feel like the acorns. I've hunted there in previous years, but not with that mass crop. And it's good in its own right. I have a little green plot. We have the natural movement out, but the acorns have just kept the deer right there. And it's interesting because there's a ton of deer bed right there. And so we've been trying to figure out how to sneak in there, because every time we go in there, we actually bump a few deer. It doesn't seem to mess up the hunt. It's mostly fawns and stuff. But we got in the stand and I'm looking around. I'm like, well, there's a deer. There's a deer. We had 3 or 4 deer bedded within 50 yards of the stand. And the grass and the brush is just tall enough. And this time out, we didn't have to hang anything. We had left it up for anticipation of future hunts. So we just like walked up, got in the tree. And, we saw what? We saw the baby 8 and a few 3-year-olds starting to move around. And then 3:30 rolls around. And I can hear a chase coming. I can just hear the deer crashing through the brush. And I'm looking around. We're in a little pin oak, and I left a lot of branches up. So I've got a couple of holes to shoot out. We have deer under us all the time. They never pick us off, but you're limited on what you can shoot. And there's the lane coming out of the woods that I can watch really well. And we have the food plot back over my shoulder that I can watch really well. But there's a big gap right to my left where it's a willow thicket. And they came straight through that, straight towards us. And you could just hear them coming, but couldn't see them. And next thing we know, this is all happening in like 5 seconds. The doe just comes running under the tree, and I'm standing up grabbing my bow because I'm like, maybe it's him. And I see him. He's at 10 yards, barreling down on the doe. The doe stops at our ground scent, and he stops. And I'm like, it's him, it's him, it's him. And Rye's trying to stand up and wake up from his nap and all this, and get recorded. And I mean, he comes into 1 yard, and I draw back, and Rye's like, no, he's under the tree. Thankfully, he's focused on the doe. The doe kind of gets in the slough behind us. And there's enough branches and junk that I can't shoot him where he stops. He's at 20 yards. He goes through the first gap. The doe like takes off because he stomps at her. And then he gets in 20, and I can't stop him. He gets in the next gap at 26, quartering away. And I mean, I just about yelled at him, and he finally stopped to be like, what was that? And hard quartering away, but tucked it in, got all up in there. And then he ran off 60 yards. I tried to pull a Owen, and I ranged him. I was like, he's at 62. I'm grabbing another. It wasn't the 100-yard shot you made, but
you had to outdo me by 1 yard there, didn't you?
I'd knock an arrow, and I'm just frantic because I actually didn't like my shot. I was aiming about 4 inches in front of the back crease, and he stepped right as I was walking, right as I was going to shoot. And so I hit like in the crease, and he was quartering away pretty hard. And I mean, like I said, hindsight's 20/20, but it ended up getting all the way up into that offside shoulder. But my initial reaction was like, dang it, that's not what I wanted to do. Well, he trots off at 60, and tail is tucked, and he's kind of wide-legged, and I'm just getting ready for a follow-up shot. But before I can even draw my bow back, it's like he's going to go down. And so he kind of did the wobble and fell over, and I was like, whew, but it was pretty exciting. I mean, this deer fits magic. I've talked about it some on the blog, but it's interesting because we have easy these 5 years of history. I mean, 2019, 20, 21, 22 trail camera pictures, very easy to tell it's the same deer. Got sheds off of them, tons of encounters. Great buck fight last year, breeding does under the stand. I mean, we kind of called him turning 10 in the past, just because he was always a 10 that kind of wrapped. And then filmed him in velvet last year, filmed him in velvet this year. And Rye actually filmed him in velvet and was like, man, look at all the junk. He has a bunch of base points and back points. And he's always been a 5x5 with little bumps for G5s. And there's 1 year he tried to grow a common base, and this year he just threw it all out at 7. And so it was kind of neat. He doesn't have a big frame. He's not super massive, but he just threw everything out, and it's just a bunch of points. I think he had 17 scoreable points. And we've been watching him. The running joke is I had him at 4.5 for 3 years in a row. And because he always had a small body. And I was like, yeah, he's 4. He's still 4. He's 4 again. And last year, Ryan and I, we kept seeing him every single hunt. And I was like, I need to go back and actually look at photos. And I know, Owen, you've mentioned this before. Sometimes deer just kind of slip under the radar. And he was one of those bucks where, oh, that's a great deer. He's got potential. And the next year, you're like, oh, yeah, was he 3 last year and he's 4 this year? And, just never big bodied. And so finally last year, I went back and I'm looking at photos. And I see him in 2020. I'm like, he wasn't 3 there. Go back to 19, find out like, oh, there he's 3. I'm like, God dang, he's getting up there. And so this year being 7.5, I mean, it's like, you got to hunt him. And he was actually, in my opinion, very killable at the end of October. We're hunting DK on the other end of the farm, and like he's just teasing us. He's on like every camera, totally daylight active. And I'm like, man, we should probably just go kill that deer and then come back and hunt DK the rest of the year. It worked out to catch up with DK, and then of course, right as the does start coming to estrus, he starts disappearing. But it ended up working out. I mean, we just got in his wheelhouse. He was staying pretty tight to one area, and it was a week before we killed him. We had 3 encounters with him in one day. In fact, our first hunt after I shot DK my last day of my little rutcation, I had to go to work a couple days, came back, and like, I think this is the spot in the morning. We're going to catch up with him on this win. We go in there and we're just not focused. We're totally lackadaisical. We're joking about everything, just not paying attention. And he sneaks in behind us. And I mean, the first thing and that's Rye's side of the tree, by the way. But the first thing we notice is like him running off, and I get my vitals. I'm like, yep, that's him. I'm like, man, we shouldn't even be out here until we can like refocus. But we made a little move for the afternoon, and then saw him at 4:00 with a doe, and then he comes to the food plot at 55 yards, like right at dark, and we had a young buck under the stand. I'm like, man, he's going to come in, and he looked at that buck, and then he just kept walking down the trail, and not overly aggressive. And anyway, it's fun. We're putting a little time in, and it all worked out. He comes crashing into 1 yard. Hard to beat it.
Talk about 2 hunts that were just so sudden. Yeah. I mean, for those that would have watched DK, that episode is finally out, released the last night. Don't want to spoil anything, but there's an example. Mike's watching does. Rye is so focused on the footage, he forgets to go, hey, Mike, DK's coming, get ready. And then all of a sudden, that what happened ensued. But between that and, the Fitzmagic kill, it's like, well, good on you guys for making both of those scenarios come together. I mean, you talk about 2 Boone and Crockett caliber deer. Again, I mean, that's testament to the amount of work you guys put down there at the River Farm. And one of the things that I am really excited to see come through on the episode, that obviously will be an episode on the Monday show here coming up. Mike, talk about the fact that, like, you referenced how he was kind of always under the radar. But one of the things that blows my mind is here's this, like you said, not huge frame, not huge mass deer. Think about all the bucks over the years you guys were hunting on that property, and he stuck it out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, he's a fighter. He was scrapping. Was there a time of year? Was he a resident deer all the time? Was he a rut deer?
I want to go back. No, I mean, he definitely was. I mean, he wasn't in the center of the farm off season, but obviously filming him in velvet 2 years in a row. I mean, he was right there. Yep. And I need to go back when I have some time and try to find 19 footage and see. I wouldn't be surprised if we had encounters with him, but let's see. In 2021, we were hunting chubs so much that we weren't down there a ton, but we filmed him late season, and every time he'd come out late season, I'd be like, man, that deer looks awesome. He'd get me excited every time he would pop out, put him in the bun. I was like, oh, that's that 4-year-old 10, because he was a 4-year-old for 3 years in a row. But
I'll never forget Mike. Like the first time we saw him late season, Mike just go, "What deer is that?"
Yeah. With the naked eye at 250 yards, or whatever, like, oh man, he looks nice. And so he definitely was in the area. And then last year, where I was committed to hunting Kelsey, and I was there so much. I mean, we saw him a ton. I mean, we just saw him everywhere we sat, all over the farm. It's like he just would be there, kind of, and kind of like that. I mean, daggers we had a bunch of encounters with, and that moss deer we had a bunch of encounters with. But for a 6-year-old, he was really running around a bit. And I think daggers was probably 6.5 last year as well. And I mean, daggers whooped up on him on that fight. I mean, I thought, well, Turn-In's going to be dead at the end of this, because I thought he was going to break his neck. I mean, they were locked together. They were just, he was trying to get loose and get out of there. And I mean, yeah, I flipped him over. I mean, it was nuts. And then when the doe breeding happened, it was basically 3 2-year-olds and him. And so he's trying to run all these young bucks off, and little 2-year-old runs in and breeds a doe, and he just comes barreling in from like 100 yards away, like trying to spear that deer. And then he bred the doe. And, so he was trying to hold his own. I think it's interesting though, that area is, I mean, it's all cover, and there's a very high deer density. And so there's a ton of does. And I mean, we've talked about this before, but we have does that are not getting bred, right? So they come back into estrus in December. We've seen them locked down. In fact, when Kelsey was 5, he was locked down with a doe in January. And so there's just so many does that, I mean, deer come from, there's a lot of bucks in there. And but it is, I mean, he's enough of a homebody buck that we've got lots of encounters in history with him.
It's going to make for an awesome episode. I mean, it might feel somewhat nature, geographic feeling. I mean, there's just so many random, I mean, you guys talked about it, big buck fight. And that one's, it's not a tickle the horns. It is locked up. Like Mike says, you think one of them's going to die before it's over, the buck breeding. I'm very excited for that episode. And, again, big shout out to you, Rye, for laying it down as always. I think, like, I made a comment on the DK episode last night. It's incredible how easy you guys make it look. Every time we're like, oh yeah, Mike and Rye just laid down something incredible again. That's awesome. But as somebody that's got to, experience a lot of different things from the videography standpoint, and just the extra time and effort that it takes to capture some of these things, and ultimately luck, you guys do it year in and year out. And it's going to be another exciting episode. And hopefully the bow on a fantastic bow season can be stamped with Rye catching up to one of those 2 bucks. So it's an awesome update. But I do want to jump into now our guest of the night, Collins Marine. Tell us what's been going on, man.
Yeah, it's been a good November so far. I kind of started hunting out. Well, I took some vacation a couple weeks ago and started hunting a deer I called EB. It was I name it EB because it's Elizabeth's buck. She had kind of dubbed that her deer, and I made a vow to her that I would not shoot that deer this year. If it came in, I'd give her a couple chances at it. And so I went into the property, my first hunt, and first hunt of like the rotation, kind of got in deep to some bedding. It was November 1st, and it was right on the backside. Well, that morning was still, I think, the last day of that good cold front that you guys all capitalized on. But I got in there and had bucks running does all over, coming and checking this bedding area. And of course, the first mature buck, he's a good 5.5-year-old that comes in, is EB, and he comes into 25 yards broadside, going to check a doe in front of me. And I had to let him go. And I don't know. I text Elizabeth, and
I'd be single.
I text Elizabeth, and I was like, if you ever thought that I didn't love you, you better rethink that. I just passed this deer. And when I told her about it, like before, I was like, you know what deer's going to come in? She's like, you probably won't even see him. And I'm like, well, I'm going to the part of the farm that he's living on. And of course, he's the first deer that came in. So I decided to take myself out of this situation of that deer's area. So I decided to go hunt a different buck the next couple days, and went to the other side of the farm, and I was going to go after this 8-point that we'd had some really good encounters with the year before. He was a 6.5-year-old this year. Elizabeth almost killed him last year a couple times. We had him come into a decoy one day and then hung up at like 50 yards in the stand that I passed EB in actually. But this year he had kind of transitioned, wasn't hanging out as much in this one part of the farm. I was only getting pictures of him on the west side of the farm. So I made a sit kind of, it's very similar to Mike's pinch spot, right along the river, big bedding area, and the whole farm kind of pinches down on this one spot as it goes to the east. And I got set up there, and it was, I think, 8:30. I decided to rattle. I'd seen some movement, a bunch of does coming back into the bedding area, a bunch of young bucks, but it got kind of quiet, so I decided to rattle. And I ended up, nothing happened, a couple minutes, so I kind of got relaxed and had the camera still on, and I hear a grunt up in front of me. So I stand up and I look, and here comes this 8-point that I was in here after, coming right to me. He's at like 60 yards. So I get ready, get the camera on him. I'm filming him, and the way the river bends, if he goes left, he'll come basically on the left side of the tree, but he can't really get behind me because I'm right on the river. Or if he goes right, it'll kind of give me a perfect quarter-and-way shot. And that's the way all the other deer had gone. Well, he decides to come straight to the base of the tree, which it just amazes me every time, like how good these deer are at pinpointing where that sound came from. Because he literally comes straight to the base of the tree. So I'm self-filming. As you guys know, it's in rye, and it's not the easiest thing to do. So I'm on him. I got my bow in one hand, and he's coming. I'm filming him. He's at like 10 yards, but he's going to get past me and give me that quarter-and-away shot. So I move the camera in front of him just a little bit, zoom out just a touch, and all right, I'm going to let him like walk through the opening, and I'll stop him and shoot him here at like 7 yards, 5 yards. Well, I get my release on the D-loop. I'm about to pull back, and for whatever reason, I don't think he was spooked or anything, but he decides to trot, and he trots right through my lane, like the camera, and then stops at like 15 yards and just starts looking around, not looking up at me like he saw me or anything, but just looking around, trying to figure out where this fight came from, I think, where the other deer are at. And I can't get the camera moved. I get the camera moved to him, but at this point, there's a limb in the way, and I can't get a shot. And he ends up basically, I didn't get a shot, long story short. He ends up going back the way he came. I tried grunting him back in, but he didn't see what he came in there to find the first time, and he just kind of walked out of my life. So that was a pretty big bummer. I texted these guys and was like, I can't believe this just happened. Like, this is why you don't self-film, but here I am still doing it. And
it felt like deja vu when you texted me that, because all I could think about was 2016 White Patch 10, just walking in, everything's all good. We get on the opening, and he just runs through for no reason.
Yep.
So like, when you sent me that, I was like, do I bring it up? Do I open that wound?
I didn't even think about it till you just said that. Yeah. Same thing. No chance of stopping him there. So he walked out, and I had a good hunt the rest of that day. I actually had an encounter with EB. He came through at noon and just checking does, went down to the river, got a drink, and then walked back through the bedding. And so I had an awesome hunt that day. But then the next day I decided I was going to hop back in that stand just because that buck was in the area, and he wasn't on a doe that morning, so I was hoping he'd still be looking. So the next morning I get in there and have a couple does up in the bedding area working around, see one bedded down, and have a couple of young bucks come and bump them off, and 2 or 3 bucks cross the river. And then I see one young buck. I see a doe up in the bedding area, and a young buck, a nice 2.5, 3.5-year-old, comes in there, and he goes up to that doe, and they both disappear. And then all of a sudden I see him come out of the bedding area, cross the river, and go to the other side on the neighbors. And I was like, that's weird. Like, either that doe is not hot, or I don't know. Like, usually they'll stick around and kind of chase them around. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking maybe there's mature deer in there with her. Well, about that time, I see the same 8-point from the day before. The doe comes busting out, and I see him kind of juking and jiving back in there, just corralling her towards the river. And she actually had 2 fawns with her. And so they're running around back there for a while. And then I grunt at him, and I don't know if he was going after one of the other does, but he, as soon as I grunt at him, he almost like turns and walks the other way. And I'm like, oh no, like, did I scare him? Because the other day, like, maybe he associated, because I'm in the same tree as I had the encounter with him the morning before. So I thought maybe, I don't know, maybe he didn't like that. So anyway, I see the doe and the two fawns, they start coming out and end up coming right in front of me about 40 yards. And all of a sudden I hear grunting coming from behind, and here he comes. Going to give me the same opportunity, coming from the left though this time. And these does, they're coming down the trail that should take them by like 30 yards, but it cuts off. They can either come by the tree, which would bring them 10, 15 yards, or keep them out 30, 40 yards. And they decide to take the 40-yard trail, and he comes through right on their tail, but stays a little bit beyond them and stayed at about 43 yards and was in front of me. And I can make that shot, but it's not a shot that I'm wanting to take, and self-filming and just everything that's going on. I didn't try to push the issue, and he ended up chasing those does off and kind of back up into the bedding area away. And I threw a couple more grunts at him, but he was not interested in me. He had what he wanted, and off they went. So that was kind of disheartening again. I mean, awesome encounters. Can't complain about that, but just so close, but couldn't make it happen. So that morning, actually, after that encounter, got really slow. So I'm just thinking in the back of my head, like, there's another deer on this farm that is older than this deer, I think, which is a deer that I ended up killing. And after these two encounters, I'm just kind of like defeated a little bit. Like, you work all year for this, and then all of a sudden you get the opportunities and you can't make it happen. It's just, you guys know how it feels.
That's a great point, man. Like, especially in your shoes, right? I mean, you're taking vacation. It's really cool as one of your friends getting to listen to this different perspective, because I mean, it doesn't seem like, unfortunately, it's getting farther and farther away, which means we're getting older. But it feels like yesterday that it was, Caleb, myself, you, we're making schedules for deer hunting. Our class schedules are all about spring turkey hunting or deer hunting in the fall. And, life has changed a little bit now, where it's like those encounters, man, 5 years ago, it would have meant, it's like, oh, cool, man, let's get after it. We're gone. And so to hear you just sharing a different perspective of like, it's a little bit more pressure. You got vacation time, you're taking time away from the kids and the family. And so, one of the things that people might forget is Midwest Whitetail's team. It's made up of people just like you. If you're listening to this, like, we all work a job. We're all taking time off from the things that we care about outside of deer hunting. And so I don't know, just an observation as one of your friends is like, man, we're getting old. Whoever thought we'd be talking this way.
We used to schedule everything, try to hunt 5-7 days a week if we could. And we usually made it happen whether we should or not, but we got out there. But yeah, so basically I decided I'd give that spot a break. I had two encounters with him right there. And there's another deer on the farm that I'd love to see and possibly shoot if I got the opportunity. And that's this deer I ended up shooting. He actually he was the first buck to show up in velvet this year on the farm. And I didn't recognize him at first. I could tell, I mean, just a giant body and big old looking face on him, but I did not recognize like his rack right away. And so I started looking back at pictures, and I realized pretty soon that I'm pretty positive it's a deer that me and Caleb had some encounters with 4 years ago, a buck that I called Beams Jr. And basically he showed up 4 years ago and kind of disappeared. He was a 3.5-year-old. And a lot of times, 3.5-year-olds, they can get pushed out, transition to other areas, other territories. And, but this deer has the exact same frame, just older and meaner, I guess. So I started kind of putting two and two together that I'm pretty sure that was this deer. He looks exactly the same. Anyway, he's an old mature deer, and I'd love to get a good look at him and probably shoot him if I got the opportunity. I've got a couple of 5 and 6 year olds on the farm. This deer just kind of towers over them and just looks bigger. And so I knew he was a good mature deer to take. Well, so I decided to move to a different side of the farm. Actually, the same stand where I shot my buck out of last year. It's a redneck overlooking a big turnip plot. I planted radishes.
Take a step back before you start talking about the hunt. Drought year, right? Paint the story a little bit. Access, where is this located next to? What type of winds are you hunting it on? Why do you have a redneck blind there? Talk about what you planted. I mean, that to me is where this really starts, is the no-till drill opportunity, that luckily we were given down there.
So yeah, I decided to go over to this other part on the farm where I'd put in quite a bit of work for on this plot where I've had a lot of success in the past. It's actually the same food plot where I was able to shoot my buck out of last year, which kind of a lot of deja vu. I killed him on November 11th last year over a decoy, and this year I killed him November 10th over a decoy in the same spot, literally basically the same spot in the field. But anyway, the work I guess on that I've done to this plot. I've got ag, which we came in with a no-till drill this year, thanks to Mike. We were having our meeting down there, and he was generous enough to let me use it, and got a bunch of beans planted in there. And we keep those fenced off until late season, just because they absolutely annihilate them. So I've still got them fenced off, but as you guys, if you watch the footage, you'll see some deer getting in there and walking through the fence, but kept them out. So there's a lot of food there, but basically I've got this redneck positioned. I've got big bedding to my north and my south, or what would it be? My east and my west, and then to my north, I've got I blow my wind out behind me, so it's perfect for a south-southwest wind. And then, but because I keep this fenced off in the field, with the redneck, I a lot of times will hunt it on a northwest wind, blow my scent over the standing beans, and just keep the windows shut until the moment of opportunity. And it's exactly what we did on Cooper's hunt, and nothing smelled us. And same thing happened on mine. I had a lot of deer come in downwind that never caught me. But on the west side of these beans, I actually plant about 1.5 acres of this year I put in radishes, rye, and turnips. And I don't know if you guys noticed it this year or not, but I think it was part of the drought possibly, but they were hitting my radishes and turnips harder than I think I've ever seen them hit and earlier. And it has just drawn in does, a lot of does. Like I'd sit there and see 15, 20 does, 30 does. And I've never seen quite that many on this plot in the past, but that kind of is what led up to me wanting to hunt this. Was I've got a few cuttybacks out around this plot, and I've been getting a lot of pictures of does coming in there and a lot of bucks coming in, not necessarily checking, like feeding in the plot, but they're coming through, they're checking it. And, if there's does in there, they'll run them off, but just getting a lot of doe activity in there. So I decided for the evening, I'd go sit the food, and basically got in there. I hopped out of the stand at about 11:30 so I could get over to this spot. And it's a good transition. Like I said, even midday, I felt like I had a very good chance at harvesting and seeing a buck and calling him into the decoy. But I got good bedding on both sides of me, and then it's a big pinch along the river. And it's kind of some canary grass with some open trees and a lot of cottonwoods and maples. But it opens up into this big area where a lot of the bucks will come out and at least check this plot midday, just to see if there's does. And like I said, there's good doe bedding near me. So got in at noon, and from 12 to 1, I had 4 different bucks come cruising through there. Had one really young buck come out and check out the decoy and work back off. And then it was pretty slow from probably 1 till about 2:30, and which I kind of expected. I'd been sitting all day and having really good action from like 10 to 1:30, and then it'd slow down, but then pick back up around 3. And around 3 o'clock, I had a little buck come and start feeding in the beans, and then some does. And every time I'd see a doe, I'd see a buck right behind her. A lot of little bucks, but they were chasing them off. And then about probably 4 o'clock, I had a little fawn come out and a little buck, and he decided he wanted to come check out the decoy. And like we were talking about earlier with decoys, this food plot, I think it works so well with a decoy because basically from one end to the plot, well, from my blind, like the furthest shot within the plot would be about 100 yards. So when these deer come out into the plot, they right away, I think I'm within their bubble. And so about every buck that I see comes and checks out the decoy. And I've never had any issues with does getting scared of them. They'll look at it and sometimes come up to it, but a lot of times they stay back 40 yards and just feed. But all the younger bucks will come up and check it out. And I had this one young buck come out and beeline right towards it. He was all bristled up. And I don't put any scent on my decoys as far as like tarsal gland or any deer scent. I just kind of spray it down with nose jammer. And this buck come up, bristled up, and then you could tell he like lost all his aggression when he got to it and just started sniffing it. Circled back to the backside, and it's kind of funny. I had a trail camera right in front of my decoy, and you can see this buck walking up to the back of it, sniffing the back of the decoy. And then all of a sudden in the trail cam pictures, you see the decoy tipping about halfway. So the buck tried to mount my decoy, tip my decoy over, and in the footage, I'm trying to like lift the window up at the same time so I can like shoo this deer away. Because I've had luck doing that in the past, like not wanting to get out and pick up my decoy every time a deer knocks it over. I'll like with younger bucks, if I can just basically say like, get out of here, and they don't mind. I don't know. They don't really care. But I don't want
just open the window, shoot, get out of here.
I don't want to go pick up my decoy every time I do.
I've done that with I've done that with fawns too.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Now, like, get out of here, boy.
It doesn't seem to affect them. They just kind of look up, and I don't know. I haven't had. Yeah, make it harder to hunt, I guess. I don't know, but anyway, he knocked it over. So of course, though, when he knocked it over, hadn't seen a whole lot up to that point for the last hour or so. But as soon as he knocks it over, I look up and here comes like 3 other bucks and 2 does. I was like, shoot, now what do I do? Like, I really need this decoy because that is what I felt like was my opportunity. Because none of these bucks, they didn't seem interested. I had a scrape tree right out in front of me, and nothing has been hitting it super hard. And right now, it seems like they're just focused on the does. And so I was really counting on that decoy to pull the buck's attention and bring them in close. So basically, all those bucks started running some does off, and I had 2 fawns on the far end of the plot. But in my head, I felt like it was important enough to get that decoy back up. So I snuck out of the blind, walked out, set the decoy up. The fawns kind of ran off back into the timber, not too scared. But I actually get back in the blind and get situated back up. And within 30 seconds, I look up, and there's this really nice 3.5-year-old just standing right at the edge of the plot looking at my decoy. And he comes out and checks it out. I don't know. I just love using the decoy because you get so many cool like encounters like Caleb and Rye even have been seeing. And so this buck come out, checked it out, ran off some other does that had come out, and then it was going on the last half hour, but it was getting pretty quiet. And the nice thing about this plot usually is it's kind of earlier movement because it's way back in the farm. All the eggs to the north, about 3/4 of a mile. So they'll kind of transition through this plot fairly early, and then head to the north, and I can sneak out of there at dark without too many deer in the plot. And it allows me to hunt it a lot and have some really good entrance and exit. And I take the coffin bike in there so I can zoom right in and out, and I just park it right under the blind. But anyway, I had a doe step out, and right in this last 20 minutes, and she's kind of feeding, and she's starting to work her way off. And I'm kind of thinking, all right, like it's about normal, probably not going to see much more, thinking about getting things situated, getting ready to do like a closer. And all of a sudden I look up and I see like deer. It's when it gets dark, you guys know how it is, especially in those rednecks, it gets pretty dark. It's hard to see. And you like out through the trees in the canary grass, I can see a deer running. And then I see a big body right behind it, and ended up being this buck. And he's chasing a doe, and he chases her out to the plot, and this doe is just running all over. He's hot on her trail, and I don't know, they run around in circles for probably 5 minutes. And it was interesting. The doe, she could go all over in the field, but she kept coming towards my decoy, and she like tried to bring the, I don't know if she was trying to get the buck to see like my decoy and think that that might like get him off of her or what, but like she kept kind of coming around the decoy, that or she was just that ready to get bred. But um eventually I kept hoping that like I'd get in his bubble, and a couple times like he'd get within. First time they came through at 30, but she was going so fast it slowed him down, but he didn't like posture up to the decoy and come completely in, and he was moving pretty fast. Well, he kept doing that, and finally she stopped at about 40, and she completely stopped, and he was at about 30, and he postured up that time, and I think like we talked about was within his bubble, and he come in right to the right 20 yards. I had the decoy at about 15, and he's posturing up to it and gives me a good broadside shot, and had the camera on him this time, and wasn't going to let this one get out. I was super happy to take this deer, and shot, and he actually dropped right there in the right where I shot him. And initially I thought I spined him because he went down so fast. So I got ready to put another one in him, and when I got out there, the shot was literally right behind the shoulder. Like looked perfect. He was slightly quartered, so the only thing I can think of is maybe it hit his offside shoulder. I don't know if there's a nerve in there or like hit the bone hard enough that it just took him out, but he literally just toppled over, and he would have died quick. I went ahead and put another one in him just to kind of like, why not? It's put him out as quick as you can. But yeah, no, he was down right there, and it was a pretty cool hunt. And like I said, it was deja vu. Last year I had the exact same thing happen. The buck came out, and he wasn't on a doe. He came straight to the decoy last year, but almost the exact same spot in the field where I shot him too. So I don't know. It spot's been pretty good.
Yeah, man. All the respect in the world, first and foremost, for the self-film adventure. That is that's a tough game. I can't say I've self-filmed since 2017 because I'm just not going to do it. I know that those situations would. What do you say?
Is that when the double drop, double flyer got away?
Yeah, me and you know that day real well, don't we? Yeah, that's 2016. But no, I mean, seriously though, like, thank you, man, like the dedication you put towards that camera, it's cost you a lot of deer. Caleb obviously has lost the opportunity on a lot of deer. And it makes these moments when things do come together just that special, right? You mentioned that spot's been really good to you over the years, but we're getting pretty long here, so I'll try to make this fast. But one of the things I think is just really awesome to see is I remember there was no food plot there, right? It was just big opening. And what were we were freshmen, sophomore in college, and we just joined Midwest Whitetail, and you convinced your dad to buy this redneck blind. And we're just like, dude, you have a redneck blind, now what? And, if you think about this spot, it's one of those examples where like you really can mold it into an opportunity early season, middle of the rut, and late season, all because of the sweat equity that you put in there. You talk about, and I'll try to paint this picture as clear as I can audio wise, but you're looking to the south, perfect access from the north. So, now you've got what Owen always talks about, Mike talks about. If you can't get in, you can't get out, doesn't matter. Well, then, it was one big ag field and then could never get beans to grow. Well, then you invested in the time and, the money to get fencing. Now your beans grow. And then you take it a step further, add the green food. And so all these memories, and hopefully that's what comes through on the video on the Heartland show coming up on this Friday. I talked to Gavin, I believe it will be this week, but you have made this spot so good. It wasn't always, it was there in the area, but I mean, you paint that picture. It's pretty cool.
The biggest difference we've done is, like you said, we used to have one big 5-acre food plot, and you just could not get the deer close enough. So we broke it up, and now we've got 2.5 acres of beans, and then I've got rye, and you just create more edges and put a scrape tree in and the decoy, and it seems like you get a lot more opportunity, at least with deer close enough. So
Yeah, it's as good of a reoccurring spot as any. And I mean, the cool thing is like you haven't even tapped into the late season potential. Another big thing is like that spot, we get a lot of flack on blind hunts sometimes. However, think about that location. There is no tree, and the only opportunity you'd have to put a tree stand in is where? On the other side of the food plot or the beans or whatever. I don't think you have nearly as good of hunting, and you
no.
certainly don't get to hunt it as much.
Yeah.
So it's one of those scenarios where like that redneck blinds is as big a part of the strategy here as anything. And at the end of the day, created some great memories for your kids. It's created some great memories for you. So kudos to you, man. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
maybe Caleb and I can pick up the slack in the trio of friends. Caleb's for sure doing a lot better than me. It's all me. I'm the one that's not bringing anything to the table, honestly. But it's cool, man. I'm excited for you.
Thank you. No, it was fun. I think you, Rye, Caleb, you guys all are. I don't know. I feel like each of you have been like super close so far this year, and I mean, Rye.
You've been watching from me.
Well, I don't know. I feel like it's just a matter of time.
Well, moving on so we can get the folks back to their tree stands, whatever they got to do. I guess I'm the one finally to give an update. Hung 2 killing stands today. If it works, that was a great quote. And if it doesn't, I'll look like an idiot. But Owen, you talked about it in the beginning. It is a funnel, and it's going to be a feast or famine for this drop time 10-pointer. I admittedly could have missed my opportunities by this point. He was pretty MIA on the property for the last 2 or 3 weeks of October, and then boom, rut hits. And I got photos of him November 2nd. Then I got photos of him November 8th, daylight, midday. And then also a few days ago, November 12th, same time frame, midday. Pattern or no pattern, the consistency is that we've had all these consistent souths, and on the 12th, we had a brief north wind switch for probably half the day. He walks through, and that funnel sets up perfect where the bedding is on the north side of him. It's a really nice path that the landowner uses to drive his Ranger through, checking his trees and all that jazz. Leads right up to a big pond. And so today I finally just saddled up, got those stands hung, and I think Friday, pending he doesn't find a doe, we're going to sit all day. Hopefully he'll come through and scent check that bedding area again, and we'll see. But yeah, I mean, 2 daylight opportunities, 2 days that, I talked to Caleb about it. I've talked to Rye about it. We've said, we should probably go hunt him. And I just haven't. It's ludicrous at this point, honestly, because you get the photo and you're like, that's cool. He did it. And then you're like, yeah, why are we not there? But we'll see. Hopefully I have some good report on that one because it feels as good of a plan as I have. But we'll see.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
It's one of the times of year it can be tough. We all wait for November, but when you get in this sort of peak breeding, and man, you can log a lot of hours and not see very much, but you got to be out there, and then either they're between does or the doe drags them by. I mean, log your time in, and that's how we're successful this time of year.
Yeah, the thing to remember too is, they can be, most of them are locked down, but if you get one that's not locked down, he's probably going to move most all day. So, I mean, that's all it takes. Just be freed up for half a day, and you're just as likely to see him at noon as you are morning and evening,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, it's crazy. He's on a quote unquote, I don't know if he's just on a 3 or 4 day pattern. I mean, he could have been locked down, and when I'm getting him, he just happens to be off of a doe. And those wind switches could be coincidental. Now, I do think that, you can still make a logical decision in the rut that says, okay, if I was a buck that's been walking all night or all day and I'm tired, because that's the one thing that's crazy is like he has already, his body weight's diminished from like early season. You can just see that this thing is just constantly logging the hours, wherever he's going. Don't know how far he is, but he is substantially smaller. I'll just take my own advice and try to be the camera. We're not going to wait for any photos. We really should just stop checking the dang thing. And hopefully I'll be able to make a phone call to you guys. But
Let's
it's an
go,
exciting
Josh.
time of year.
Let's go. That's right.
Let's go.
Yeah. Got you. Yeah, man. It's no fault but my own that deer's not dead, period. I mean, that's all there is to it. So thank goodness you guys have had incredible hunts and put in incredible efforts to, bring some great stories to close. And yeah, Rye, Caleb, let's do these guys proud and hop on the train. So exciting times ahead. Hope you guys have had some fantastic hunts of your own, and appreciate you guys joining us again for another episode. Final notes, if you haven't caught the story of DK, you can find that on the Midwest Whitetail main channel. We just released that yesterday. Collins' hunt, if you listen to that, is going to be on the Midwest Whitetail regional YouTube channel. You'll be able to follow that on Friday. And then all of Caleb's incredible vocalizations. If you haven't seen those, highly recommend you go to the Midwest Whitetail Daily channel and check those out, because it's seriously some pretty epic stuff. I mean, it might feel common, but man, it's definitely not. And hopefully, those will all lead to the shot opportunity that you've been working extremely hard for, Caleb. So, and you guys got a closing piece of advice for the viewers out there? I think you already said it. Get in a tree.
Get in a tree.
Get you some good snacks. That way you stay in the tree all day. That's what it is.
Necessity.
Snacks, and a little bit of TP.
Snacks, TP, and get in a tree. Appreciate you guys joining us for another After Hours podcast. Best of luck out there, and we'll see you on the next one.